This is part 3 of building a blog with Rails 5 and Bootstrap 4. To get started, I'm going to go over to my terminal, change down into my lessons or episodes directory, and that's a project that we created previously. And I'm going to open this up in Sublime Text, and here we go. Let's see where we left off. If we go over to our terminal, clear this out, run the server. We can jump over into Chrome and look at localhost 3000. And we can see where we left off. We had a pretty nice design going on with some responsive functionality. Okay, cool. So in this episode, we're going to dive into setting up some authentication so that, for instance, authors will be able to create blog posts, but not just any old person off the street could come into our website and create a blog post. The first thing that I'm going to do is going to be a little bit different than maybe in some other tutorials you might see around the web, and potentially slightly bizarre, but I think it'll make sense once we get down into it a little bit. So I'm going to go into my episodes folder. You're going to want to go into wherever you have your project. And we're going to go into the views folder. And inside of the views folder, I'm going to create a new folder. And I'm going to call this author. And I'm going to create another folder, and I'm going to call this blog. Now, I'm actually going to drag this post folder into the blog folder and this pages folder into the blog folder. So what I'm planning to do here is the author section of the app, where someone who's going to log in and write a blog post, they're going to have a different kind of security than someone who's just viewing blog posts. And as a matter of fact, in the author section of the app, if you want to call it that, you're really going to have all of the same pages for posts, for example. So you'll be able to see a list of pages, or a list of posts rather. You're going to be able to view a post or go to a show action. You're going to be able to edit. You're going to be able to update, delete, all the normal stuff. But those are going to look different than they will from an actual, what a visitor will see. And a visitor won't have access to all those things. So I feel like it's a good moment to kind of go ahead and separate that out. That's partially based on my own preference and experience. So let's keep going. First and foremost, what we just did should have broken our pages here. Yeah, so we're going to get some crazy errors, and I need to go in and fix the routing. Let's see what that error actually said. Post controller index is missing a template. Right, so I can't find the templates. So what I'm going to do to get started is come in, and I'm going to say scope module. And we're going to call this blog do end. And I'm going to bump this resources post up inside of here. Next, I need to go into my controllers, and I'm going to create a new folder. And I'm going to call it blog. Inside of here, I guess I could have done this before, but I'm going to go ahead and create a post controller, and this is going to replace the other one. So I'm going to do module blog, and this is called namespacing. So in the end, what we'll have is something where we could say blog and then post controller is basically what we're going to end up with. So we'll have class post controller. For now, we'll just inherit from application controller. And actually, this is all the same, so I'm just going to copy. I don't know why I'm typing all this. Cut that actually, because I'm not going to keep the other one. And we'll just tab all that in and save it for now. And then the other one, I'm just going to delete it. And I don't want to save that. So let's go back to the browser and just see what happens. It may give us the same error. Uninitialized constant post controller. Okay, that's interesting. And if I go to /posts, it actually loads. Okay, that's interesting too. Okay, so let's see what's going on here. So if we go back to the routes, we can see that we've got the root pointed at posts index, which is why that's broken, because it's not namespace properly. And then we've got the blog wrapped around the post, which is why the other one is working. So, and we did already move the views, so that's why they're working properly. Because I think if we would have left this post directory up directly inside the views folder, that would not have worked. So you can look at the pattern here. So you have controllers, you have a blog folder inside, and we're going to start moving controllers in there. And then down here in the views, you have a blog folder, and then we're going to put the corresponding stuff to the controllers in there. Really quick, let's look and see what happens when we click on one of our other links. So it's going to break. Okay, similar error to earlier. So I'm going to take these and put them here. And uninitialized constant blog pages controller. Okay. So I'm going to do the same thing I did before. Cut this. I'm going to create a new file inside the blog folder. Pages controller. Module blog. It's important that the module title match this folder name. Fix up the spacing here. Let's go see if our page works now. Yes, it does. So if you are not new to Ruby on Rails, you'll know that there are some very specific conventions that people tend to follow, and I try to follow them, but sometimes I break away from them a little bit, and this is a case where I'm going to do that. I don't like having one big application controller all the time when I have very different feeling sections of the app. So I'm actually going to change this to blog controller. I need to rename this file here to be blog controller. And what you have to be careful about is now in here, all of the controllers inside of the blog directory need to be blog controller. And let's go make sure this still works. Broke something. So I think what may be going on has to do with the layouts and the way they're named. So you have this application layout, which I believe corresponds to the application controller naming convention. So if I rename this to blog, I don't know if that will fix it, but it might. Let's see. It does. Okay, so interesting trick there. So if you follow the logic, you have a blog controller, which is a top level controller that your other ones are going to inherit from, and you just have to name the layout file the same to get it to apply to that. That's cool. There's one little bit of cleanup I forgot to do here. I need to delete this pages controller that we're not using anymore. And that's good. So not to hammer this too much, but I just want to reiterate what we've done so far. So we have a blog controller, and we don't need this concerns folder here, which could be confusing if you don't know what it does. So right now we have a controllers folder. We have one controller called blog controller, which inherits from this action controller base, which you don't need to worry about. That's part of Rails. And then inside of a blog directory, we have our pages controller and our post controller, which both of them are nested inside a module blog, and there is a class inside that inherits from blog controller. So the last thing we need to fix is this routes problem, because if we go to the root directory, it's still broken. So to do that, I think we can do this, blog/posts index. Let's see if this works. It may not. Yes, it does. So that's our basic setup for the blog section, except for one thing, this resources post. This isn't in the right spot. What we actually want to do is something a little bit different. We want to say namespace, and I'm going to say author, and I'm going to bump the resources posts up in there, and then down in here I'm going to do get posts, and we're going to say posts index, and we'll say get post / ID post show. So let's see if our code is still working in the browser over here. Nope, I broke something. Undefined method post path. Okay, so this is going to be as posts. Cannot type right now. And this is going to be as post. Let's see if that fixes it. Right, so now we can click in and see them. Everything else still works. Okay, cool. So I'm going to go back over here really fast and just explain a few things. So first off, resources post is probably going to look a little funny. Basically what it's doing is it's defining all the possible routes that match those controller actions in the post controller. That is things like get posts, get post / ID. It's going to be things like put post / ID or post to the post path. That probably sounds kind of confusing if you're a bit new to this, but basically it's the different types of HTTP requests that you can send to the server, and the different actions will handle it. Don't worry too much about that right now, just focus on kind of getting the gist of what's going on. That said, one thing that I wanted to point out that's going to be a little bit helpful as you get a little further along, when you see this get post / ID, what this is saying, a GET request is just what your browser issues when you type a domain in your URL and hit enter. You're sending a GET request to some website. So that's pretty basic. Post and put are things that happen when you submit forms and whatnot, whether you're creating a new item or editing one. Things are handled differently. At any rate, and sometimes you'll see things like patch and delete. There's more things. But anyway, so the thing I wanted to point out is what this post or this post / ID is going to actually mean is you're going to see things like post / Jimbob. And in this case, what happens is in your controller, what's going to happen is if you said params ID, because we've said ID right here, that's going to be equal to Jimbob. And it's going to come in as a string like this. If you were to say favorite cat, or cat, yes, let's say that, and then you said post Jimbob, then you would get favorite cat. Actually, that needs to be an underscore. Sorry, I'm not trying to confuse you. Anyway, the point is that whatever you pass in here actually comes into your controller as a kind of variable in the params. So I'm going to undo this, and let's see. You can see exactly what I'm talking about if we look over in the post controller, and you can see we have show. So on the show action right here, we're passing in this ID. And so on the show, it doesn't look like anything's happening, but remember we have this before action, set post. So if we go down to the bottom, set post, and we have params ID. And what this friendly ID thing is doing, be sure to go back and catch up on the episodes if you're behind and you jumped ahead. But basically what this is doing is allowing us to pass in things that look like words instead of just numbers. So instead of saying ID of 12, we can say book review or whatever. So let's jump back over to the browser, And let's see where we are with everything. So if I refresh this, that's still fine. If I go to post/new, that should be broken. See what the error is. Active record, record not found. So what's happening here, and this is not the most intuitive error, and that has to do with the way that we have things set up, is we're pointing, so look at the URL, so we have post/new. We're pointing the post ID. So what it's trying to do is look up a post with the ID of new, when what we actually want is to go to, we want something like this. However, this is what we discussed before, where inside this blog module, we actually don't want to, we don't want to let people create new posts. So this shouldn't go here, it needs to go up here, which was where we have it. So the difference between namespace and this scope module thing is that namespace actually expects the URL to have the word author in it. So it's expecting something like /author/post/new or /ID or whatever, whereas this is not expecting anything. So it tells it you need to have this inside of a blog module, but it's not actually saying it's in the URL. So this is why we can just have the root path or posts or what have you and not have the blog there. So if we go back to the browser, we should be able to actually fix this just by adding a prefix of author here. And then we're going to get a different error, uninitialized constant author. So let's fix that. So let's jump back to the code, and I'm going to go ahead and close everything for the moment. So right now we just have this blog controller and one folder. So I'm going to create two things here. I'm going to create an author controller, and I'm going to actually just paste in everything from the blog controller for the moment. These won't be identical in the end. If they were, this would be silly, but they're going to be quite different. So we're going to have author controller, and then we'll create a new folder called author. In here, we're going to create a post controller, and I'm actually going to copy the post controller here, paste it. I'm going to change this to author, and in this post controller I'm going to delete everything except for index and show. So we don't need post params anymore because we're not allowing anybody to post anything. I don't really need this set post because it's so simple and it's just one thing, so we can axe this before action. And this is pretty straightforward now. It's about as simple as you can get. And then this makes sense pretty much as it is. We have our author post controller, which needs to inherit from the author controller, not the blog controller. And I think that's pretty much right. We may have to change some stuff in a little bit, but that's pretty good for now. So let's go back and refresh and just see what error we get now. So we have a missing template. So let's fix that by going back here. I'm going to copy this. Copy. And then inside of author, I'm just going to paste it. And then let's refresh and see if it fixed. Okay, it did. And now inside of post, I want to go ahead and remove, this is inside of, let's go back to the code actually, it's a little clearer. So inside of the views folder, in the blog, and posts. So we've copied everything, here. So I'm going to go ahead and delete it from the blog folder, or delete some of the things. So I'm going to delete the form. I'm going to keep that. I'm going to delete edit. I'm going to delete new, and that's probably good. Because in our show, remember we're rendering, index, excuse me. In index we're rendering post, which deals with this post partial, and then we have the show, which is its own thing. Then the last thing that we need to do is we need to create a new layout file called author, like we did before, to match our controller name. Oop, that's the wrong file extension. I'm just going to delete that and do it again. Okay, and I'm going to copy this and paste this here. And let's see, it's kind of funny, it doesn't look the same. Did I type that right? Looks like it. It's telling me it's HTML here. I wonder if I can just switch it to... Yeah, okay. So let's see what happens. So I'll get my same styling back. If I click, I can go to my same routes before. If I go to author, posts, looks just like the landing page, which is alright for now. The next thing that I want to do is fix something in the nav bar. So I want to add a link to the actual author post section. So I need to do this in two places because of the way we've handled this on mobile. So I'm just going to say my posts. Let's see. Yeah, my post is good. And we'll say author post path, which comes out of that namespace thing that we have. And we'll say author, yield author for now. Then I'm going to copy this. Down here I need to do li.nav item. Paste that in. Let's see what this looks like. My posts. So if I click on blog, you can see that it stays the same, but the URL changes. If I click on my post, it stays the same, but the URL changes. So let's get that active state fixed. So we have yield author, and then yield author. Then in our author views, posts, form, let's see, where do we need to do this? Edit. That's not what I'm trying to change, excuse me. Author. Alright, so let's see what happens now. So if I go back and refresh, yeah, so now this is active. Okay, cool. So the last thing that I want to do before we add some real authentication is change this up a bit, because we don't want to see this when we're in our author section. We want to see more of a kind of an admin feeling kind of thing where we can manage posts and that sort of thing. So let's go back to, let's close everything. Let's look in our author views. So our index, we're going to leave exactly the same. I say that. No, let's change it up a little bit. So we're going to do table.table. Let's do table striped. And then we're going to do render posts. And then right at the top, I want to do tr. And then we'll do th title. Let's leave it at that for now. And maybe you know what, let's just leave it right there and let's see what we get. So in post, we're actually going to axe all of this stuff, and we're going to say tr td post.title. We'll just see if this works. So we basically get this super simple table, striped, prints out the title of the thing. So now what we want to do is have this link to the post, but we want it to be author post, and then we need to actually pass in the post, and this needs to be path. So this is, for now, this is actually basically the same as the how the post looks in the regular blog. Because I don't have any idea what's going to happen in the future, I'm not going to mess with it right now. I'm just going to leave them. It is code duplication, which is evil, but right now I don't care so much about that. Then let's do, just going to make this call span, make this, let's just say 4 for now. And then in here we'll do td link to edit. Don't worry about where that goes for now. And actually, let's just wrap that up and we should be good. I think we need to make a delete, probably. That's the wrong thing. That needs to be edit author path. Actually, might need to be author edit post path. Nope, that's right. Okay, so author post fourth edit. Alright, so let's add a delete. So we're going to say remove is maybe friendlier. It's actually, the way you do this, you say author post path method delete, and we'll say how do you do this? It's like data prompt. Are you sure? That didn't work. So if we refresh this, we'll see that it did in fact delete, but I wrote something wrong here. I think this maybe is actually confirm. So let's try that. Okay, if I click yes, we'll go down to 2 posts. Okay, so something screwy is happening here where we're redirecting to the wrong place. So what I'm gonna do is go back to my post controller, author post controller to be more specific. So here we have redirect to post. Oh, that's the wrong thing. Redirect to post URL. So I'm going to say author post URL. So I'm going to delete one more. And we stay right here. So one thing I'm noticeably missing is a link to the new page. Well, there's 2 things I want to do really quick. So the first thing I want to do is throw in one more TD right in the middle that I'm going to leave blank. I'm going to make this a class btn sm btn warning. I'm going to copy this, throw it on the end here, and make this one danger. Alright, that doesn't look great, but I can live with it for the moment. Then at the very top of my page, just inside the row, I'm going to do link to new post, and it's going to be new author post path class btn primary. I'll say btn lg. And I'm going to throw a BR tag right there, and that's all I'm going to worry with this right now. What? I'm going to break some kind of cardinal rule here and try 2 BR tags. Okay. I'll fix that later with styles, but for now I'm going to do something that everyone hates and do back-to-back BR tags. Okay, so that's not looking good, but it's okay for the moment. Alright, so I better do this right, or I'm going to mess it up later. So I'm just going to do div, move the link inside of the div, and then take out one of the BR tags, and we should be good. Okay, that's right. Or better. And then that goes to the new post. I'm going to check my post controller really quick and make sure that I'm redirecting to all the right places, which I'm not. So this needs to be author post path. And this is the same in the update. One other thing I wanted to do, I want to have this post stand out a little bit more in my author section. So right at the top, I'm going to throw, this is going to be ugly, so I'm going to have to fix this later too. I guess I don't need I'm not even going to worry about the style at all. I'm just going to drop the links in. So we're going to link to edit. And then I'm going to have a link to destroy too. So now if I click this, oh, I messed the variable up. So this is @post here. So now I have these little dudes, but only when I'm looking at it from the My Post section, so that way we can differentiate a little bit. Alright, cool. So it took a little longer than I thought to get to this point, so I'm going to wrap this video up, and in the next video, the first thing that we're going to do is dive into actual authentication. So in the next video, we're going to set it up so that you cannot get to this My Post section unless you are logged in. And we may work on fixing up some of the styles around here a little bit because this is a little crazy. But we'll see. In the next one, we're definitely going to get to the authentication bit though. So until then, I'll talk to you next time.